Hello, family. Welcome back. I was wanting to share some things about Armageddon with you guys to help put things in perspective because I feel it's important that we understand this particular event and the predictive programming that has been going on for many years when it comes to a threat from above. And I know that many of you by now are hopefully aware of their final card. If you're not, you really need to go and watch the final card to understand more of what we're talking about. But the final card or the final threat is essentially a fake threat from above. And Werner von Braun, before he passed, one of the Nazi NASA scientists, warned about that on his deathbed, that that was their final deception. And when you look at the events of Revelation, it makes a whole lot of sense because they're going to be given power to deceive. You see that already taking place. They have deceived the entire world about creation, and they are preparing for Armageddon. And so, Armageddon being a real event that is going to happen, and if you're about my age, you probably recall a movie that came out in the 90s, 1998 to be exact, called Armageddon. And guess what? The threat was from above. And the reason this is on my mind is because I actually came across this VHS in the thrift store the other day and was looking at it and realized how this predictive programming just went right over my head. I didn't even realize that's what it was because, of course, that threat from above. And guess who the good guys are? It's NASA sending some astronauts to this threat to destroy it once and for all so that we can all be safe on our little pale blue dot. And so the movie essentially starts out with fire coming down from above. Here's some demon figures watching from their little humble abode over here in France. There's the giant obelisk Eiffel Tower. And so this fire from above is also mentioned in Revelation. And it's talking about here this other beast coming up after the first one, of course. It says, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell thereon to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from above on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles." And so when I first read this years ago, I was picturing this guy being like a magician going, "Look, I'm going to make fire rain down." However, I'm wondering if the fire raining down from above doesn't have the end goal of making people think there's this great threat from up above us. And so it's telling us that he had power to do this in the sight of the beast as well, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image. This is where you get people to break a commandment, making an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. So taking up that graven image to bow down, to worship it, something that's gone on since the days of Noah. And so that is Revelation 13, talking about that fire from above. And then as you read forward into 16, getting closer to Armageddon, it tells us more about certain powers that are involved. And it says that this is John, saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils working miracles, just like the fire coming down, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. And then you have these important words here. "Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon." So Armageddon is a place, in this place, which is often pronounced Harmageddo. If you're looking for it and having a hard time finding it, that's probably why. It's owned by the United Nations. Remember with the Tower of Babel, people were divided because it was said that what they were doing would be possible as long as they had the same language and were united. They're trying to undo the Tower of Babel and prematurely unite the nations to carry out these deceptions. The language hasn't been restored to a pure language yet. They're working on technology to help do that. But when the Father and the beloved Son return, the pure language is going to be restored. That's going to be awesome. Really undoing that work right there. And so, Armageddon, just getting back to that, looking at the preview of the movie is what really sparked my attention the most because at the very end of the preview, the word Armageddon pops up and then it changes screens and says, it's closer than you think. And so you have that fire raining down, threat from above. Who are the good guys? NASA sending their deep core drilling people that are really good at drilling downwards to an asteroid. And remember, Von Braun said the asteroid threat would be a big one. We're seeing that as well pop up continually, new asteroids, new UFOs, just all this stuff ramping up in these last days. And then they kind of withdraw and they don't talk about it. So you had that movie coming onto the scene right there to help with the brainwashing. And then you had Deep Impact in the same year. And this is more fire from above. And when I started looking at movie covers for this one, you see here oceans rise, cities fall, but hope survives. And the cities falling is mentioned yet again, a revelation right here. I highlighted it in yellow when it talks about the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. So that great earthquake happening before that, of course, greatest one so far ever to happen is when Armageddon is about to happen. And so that great earthquake, cities falling, that is going to happen. They're taking a lot of their scripts, I believe, straight out of the Bible, making everyone feel like we have to unite to save our world. When in reality, the Father has already sent his beloved Son. The beloved Son is going to return, and our Father right there with the beloved Son at the right hand. That's why when he was talking to the high priest, he said, you have yet to see me return, essentially, at the right hand of power, is what most translations say. There's other translations that tell us that it's not just the right hand of power, it's the right hand of the Most High. Prophecy confirms that. Daniel chapter 7, to be exact. That's one of the places. And so here's another cover here. Deep Impact. Summer, like I said, 1998, same exact year. Heaven and earth are about to collide. In other words, the firmament and earth are about to collide. Even their little image here reminds me of a dome when you zoom in on it. Kind of looks like people being delivered up, gathered by angels here. Right there. The resurrection. Pretty good artwork there, but they got the curvature, kind of throw us off. But yeah, heaven and earth about to collide, and here you see more of that in Revelation when John says he saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven. Imagine that, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. How cool is that? When the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And God himself shall be with them and be their God, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. Hallelujah. It's going to be awesome. And there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. This is not right after Armageddon. This is right after the millennial reign and Gog and Magog. When the second death happens, everything that's bad is cast into the lake of fire. All of that happens. And then you have this new chapter, a new heaven and earth, the Most High, setting up that permanent dwelling point, the tabernacle, right there with men. How cool is that? Longing for that day. But that is a quick snapshot into Revelation, Armageddon, the predictive programming that has been around for so long. And like my good friend Mikey Jenny told me about a couple years ago. They are doing this in superhero movies as well. It doesn't just stop with the end time doom movies. They put it in the supervillains. They make these supervillains all powerful, setting up high on a throne, looking down at the world. And all of these good guys are uniting to fight this power who's going to try and put an end to their way of life. You see that constantly in movies, and I didn't realize it until he said that. And you start seeing a theme. You'll notice that with supervillain movies, it's always this final threat trying to wipe out all of humanity. It's from above, just like Armageddon, Deep Impact, and all these things. And of course, there are going to be things coming from above, not just the enemy having things rain down from above, But when they try to attack the Most High, it says that there will fall upon men a great hell out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. I looked that up. It says a talent's about 100 pounds. So you have these hailstones falling from heaven or the firmament, because that's what he called the firmament in Genesis, heaven. So it doesn't say it's coming from the clouds. These hailstones are going to be moving fast. Anytime somebody drops out of a balloon with a parachute and they're jumping above a certain altitude, they fall really fast, 600 to 700 miles per hour. So these things are going to be coming down weighing 100 pounds, doing some damage. And so for that reason, it says men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hell, for the plague thereof was exceeding great. And so you see prophetic foreshadowings of a lot of these things in Egypt when there was hell mingled with fire. So many things are prophetic in our word. And not only that, just to remind you, if you never saw our little season videos where we are talking about how we are not in the little season, we looked more closely at the scenario with Armageddon because that's where they're going to gather people. And we just had Operation Steadfast Defender take place this year, 2024, where they brought troops to the Euro-Atlantic area. I didn't know where that exactly was, so I looked it up on a map, and sure enough, it's right around here, near this place called Armageddon. And this exercise wasn't a small exercise. Operation Steadfast Defender had 90,000 personnel from all 31 allies of NATO, and they had Sweden. Look at all these naval ships and everything they had uniting for what they called a near peer threat. Reminds me of a certain event, 201, that they had right before another certain event that took place that we're not allowed to talk about. And so, with that said, I just wanted you to see that and realize Armageddon, like the movie said, is closer than you think. And also share some verses that my wife found in the fourth book of Ezra the other night. As I was studying this, she just started reading this out loud. And it reminded me of Armageddon because it says this is the interpretation of the vision. Of course, Ezra just had a vision. It says, as for your seeing a man come up from the heart of the sea, this is he whom the Most High has been keeping for many ages, who will himself deliver his creation, and he will direct those who are left. And as for your seeing wind and fire and a storm coming out of his mouth, and as for his not holding up a spear or weapon of war, yet destroying the onrushing multitude that came to conquer him. Does that not sound like Armageddon? Wow. This is the interpretation. The days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on the earth, and bewilderment of mind shall come over those who inhabit the earth. They shall plan to make war against one another, city against city. Sounds like the Messiah is telling them this on the Mount of Olives. Place against place, people against people, and kingdom against kingdom. When these things take place, and the signs occur that I showed you before, then my son will be revealed. Did you hear that? Then, hallelujah, my son will be revealed, whom you saw as a man coming up from the sea. That'd have been awesome to be Ezra seeing this vision. Then, when all the nations hear his voice, all the nations shall leave their own lands and the warfare that they have against one another. Right now, they are warring against each other. That's going to change. And an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together as you saw, wishing to come and conquer him. But he shall stand on the top of Mount Zion, and Zion shall come and be made manifest to all people, prepared and built as you saw the mountain carved out without hands. Reminds me of Nebuchadnezzar's vision. Then he, my son, will reprove the assembled nations for their ungodliness. This was symbolized by the storm, and will reproach them to their face with their evil thoughts and the torments with which they are to be tortured, which were symbolized by the flames, and will destroy them without effort by means of the law, which was symbolized by the fire. And I could remember what he said his words are going to be when he returns to those that depart. And it's depart from me, those of you who practice lawlessness. I believe that's really important to understand. He didn't say, those of you who practice lawlessness, except for those who live after my resurrection. That word lawlessness, when you look it up, sometimes it's translated as iniquity, means an utter disregard for God's law. And there's a huge push to utterly disregard it. And I know that from experience because that's how I was brought up, to utterly disregard it. And so I think that's really important to understand what his words are. His return, Armageddon, the events that will unfold. I know many people think that this has already happened. I understand. I encourage you to pray about this, possibly watch our series where we talk about the events that have to happen according to prophecy. And Peter tells us to be mindful of the words of the prophets and to understand that each day is with the Lord as 1,000 years and 1,000 years as a day. I might be saying that a little wrong, so you'll have to look those verses up yourself. But it's important to know where we are in time, what's around the corner, preaching the gospel of the kingdom. They want us to believe we have a threat from above for a reason. They haven't been using predictive program to make us think we have a threat from the ground. That's what they would be doing right now. The entire aim of the enemy would be getting us to fight against a kingdom on the ground. And they are not. We don't have a restored language. We haven't been going up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles every year through any of the generations of my family or any generation of any family I've ever talked to. Those are things prophecy tells us will happen during the millennial reign. So there's a lot of things that need to be going on for us to be in the millennial reign. We wouldn't even be getting rain in the first place if we weren't doing the Feast of Tabernacles and sending somebody from our nation to the camp to do that. So many different things. It's a long story. I don't want to get into that. We've talked about it many, many hours, but I wanted to share this with you guys just to remind you that although the predictive programming is trying to serve a purpose, we need to use it to serve a good purpose and warn people that yes, they are sometimes right. Armageddon is closer than you think. The return is closer than you think. The kingdom is at hand. No matter how old you are, we are never very far from the kingdom. Our lives are just a vapor. As you get older, you start to see that. It's amazing how fast this life passes. It's kind of sad sometimes, but it's also kind of good knowing how close we are to getting to unite with our Father and His beloved Son. What a great day that's going to be for us, but not for those who perish. So try to reach as many as you can and share that light like the Messiah told us to. Don't keep it hidden. You guys are bright lights, and I've enjoyed fellowship with you. So hopefully this clarifies a little bit about Armageddon. I know I'm all over the place. I just had this on my heart and wanted to share it. So I hope it makes sense to you guys what they've been doing with the predictive programming and what the word tells us about it. I highly recommend going through Revelation after you've gone through all the prophets and seen everything, how it lines up, so that you'll better understand these things. And of course, Revelation is not easy to understand, even if you've done that, but it does help. It gives you a better grasp on things when you understand the prophets and what these things are actually talking about. And so I don't have all the answers. I could be wrong about some of this. Don't take me at my word for it. Do your own due diligence and study these things out for yourself. But anyways, I love you guys. The Father loves you, and we will see you next time.